Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 21 of Creative Collaborations Conversations with Jillian and Veronica. I'm Veronica, and as always, I'm here with Jillian. Hello, Jillian.
Hello, here we are.
And we are ready for another episode of our podcast. And
Yeah, today we're going to chat about client selection. Um, Feels like a really proper topic and something that you and I have had a number of conversations about. So it feels like a good topic to share with others. So
yes,
client selection.
especially now that we are reaching the end of the year. And it's important to we had the previous episodes reflecting on last year, setting up goals for the new year, and
Mhm.
we both shared that I think without any exception, all our
Mm,
clients and us included, we have at least one of the goals having more clients, and we discuss how many clients, how to think about approaching them. But how do we actually select them? Who do we want to work? What is
mm,
important when we are going and, shall we say, chasing or trying to get new
mm,
clients or having discussions with prospects? So
mhm.
I will always start with a question towards the person I'm discussing. So I'm going to launch this question to you. How do you approach it? What is important to you when you're considering getting a new client?
Mhm. Okay, so when I'm about getting a new client, so for me, I want to jump one step back because I think when I think about client selection, the first point is kind of the mindset about it, right?
Mm,
And so how am I feeling about my service, who I am, the value I bring, how I want to work, all of these things, and really becoming clear about that, um, and feeling. I think there's a lot of pieces kind of couched in that. So even like the scarcity versus abundance, and feeling, yeah, I feel like the scarcity versus abundance is a really big one, because when
mhm.
you feel like you have a scarcity kind of position, you have more of a tendency to chase and to be desperate in all of these
Yeah.
things, as opposed to having a mindset of abundance. You're more likely to be relaxed, but then also to have like a more of, I feel like an abundance mentality closely corresponds with confidence or security
Mhm.
around what it is that you're doing, and also kind of the value of what you're doing. So I think even before getting to that point of the selecting clients or any of that, I think it's a really important piece to do, maybe to redo several times, but definitely it's a good time at the end of the year and reevaluating what types of client scenarios or engagements were most fulfilling or most productive, et cetera. And then taking that into consideration and really taking it back to the mindset piece. So that's where I start is the mindset of how I think about it. I
It's
think,
if I
go,
sorry
go
to
ahead.
interrupt, but I do want to jump in because I do the same. However, I for me that is in lining my work with my values and the mission and the purpose of my company because I
Mm,
do like what you mentioned, the scarcity and abundancy. That's one of the core abundance is one of the core values of my company and
mm,
mine
mm,
personally actually. So I do see this like not getting any client just because I'm scared I will not be able to pay my bills, but getting the right
yep.
client that I'm able to serve, provide value, and also enjoy working. Because
Yeah.
what I'm noticing, if you're getting any client just to basically pay your bills,
Right.
um, you're not going to produce the best work because you'll be
Hmm.
unhappy. There will be usually the communication is not the best because you're not in line in what needs to happen or how to work or how to
Hmm.
approach a business. And then
Hmm.
bottom line, you'll not be happy sharing that project with the
Yeah.
world or so
Yeah.
it's a vicious circle actually. One influence
It
the other
is.
one without you realizing it.
Yes. It's funny you say that. I think of it as does this client or prospective client pass the ring test? And for that, I mean, by that I mean, if the phone rings and it's this person, do you want to pick it up? Like, do you even consider not picking it up, or do you think about it? So if you have that pause, for me, if there's that pause moment where it's like, that's an indication. It doesn't necessarily mean that's not the ideal client for me, but it's an indication that it's not, they're not adding energy. They're not adding. And so
That's a good
ideally
way of
it's
saying it.
working with those people, whether they're clients or not, but the people that add to us has a greater propensity to that we're also adding to them, and then it creates a very nice kind of reciprocity. But yeah, so I think of it as the ring test. Yeah, do we answer the
I
phone
love
if
the
they
ring
call?
text. I
Yeah,
like that. And
yeah.
I will probably always answer, but I think I will go a step further. Like, how do you answer it? Do you answer it from like a good place, good energy, happy, curious, or anxious? And I think that
Or
will
even before
define.
that, it's like that the awareness, that moment when the phone rings. It's like generally we're going to answer the phone because that's what we do, but
Yeah,
the self-awareness, like what was my instinct? How was my immediate reaction? Was it to pause, or was it like, ooh, because we have those moments, those like instant moments that happen. So the more we can become in tune with ourselves and the people that add or deplete our energy, the better we're going to be able to build proactively in that vein.
maybe this should be one of the pillars when it comes to client selection. Like, does that person or account deploy, like takes your energy or brings
Yep.
energy?
Right. Right. I mean, that's an important piece, I think, because if you have two clients that are, depleting your energy all the time, it's not going to be as sustainable as having four clients that bring energy. So
Exactly.
theoretically, you could do twice the work when you're not, draining energy out the back door kind of thing. So I think that's
And
why I think so much of life and business is a mental thing, and spending the
yeah,
time to prepare. So I think, yeah, I think it's a good place to start, and related to this bit. Excuse me.
exactly. And that actually brings us back to the scarcity and abundancy, because as you said, if they take your energy and you're working only with two clients, so that you go from a scarcity point. But if you
Yes.
go with four and they bring you energy, that's the abundancy part.
Mm-hmm.
So they are
Mm-hmm.
very, very connected. Bottom line is
Mm-hmm.
actually not about the numbers, but about the energy and how you approach them.
Yes.
And
Yes. But generally, we can do more when we have more energy, or we're just going to do
correct.
better quality work. And there
Mhm.
is kind of this ripple effect that happens. So it's not all based on energy and mood and all of these things, but at least in my world, it's an indicator of the things
And
that I
yeah,
should do more of or less of.
exactly. And I hope people will start listening more to this instead of just going after the money, basically, because the money will gonna
Yeah.
follow. And I
Yeah.
think I'm noticing this difference, me working for a corporate or for a company and me working for myself, because you're switching the priorities. Instead of just
Mm,
producing more revenue, is feeling good while producing revenue.
mm, Yeah, I think the same thing. Um, Another thing that comes to mind about client selection is at least relevant for me and perhaps other people as well. But when I previously worked only with um, inbound like referrals,
Hmm.
I wasn't doing a lot of selecting per se, because it was all clients that were coming to me, or prospects were coming to me. So there's a lot of benefit in having a
Yeah.
100% referral business for sure. It was pretty amazing for quite a number of years. But the piece I missed out on was the, or I didn't, I guess I could have still done that. And that's a new discovery for me, is you can have both. It's inbound referrals are amazing, and also having the other side of being proactive to actually seek out the types of clients or partners or opportunities that are more in alignment with who we are and what we do and the type of people we want to work with. So I think, again, that can sprout out of spending the time with the mindset piece and thinking about who we are and who we want to work with, and working on this, your ICP, or ideal customer or client profile, and some of those things. So I think that position of being reactive versus proactive, and reactive doesn't have to be just receiving referrals. Reactive can be like, kind of, I feel like it's more, can also be related to the scarcity idea. It's like, not being selective and just like taking anything you can get,
Yeah.
as opposed to, again, so I feel like the reactive, proactive are closely related to the scarcity and abundance, perhaps just a different way of thinking of it.
I I agree. One thing that I find interesting, and I'm making here a correlation with the online networking with the spin. When people are referred to you, usually are referred by acquaintances or former clients or people in your network that know how you work, they know your values, they know your approach and what they can expect or should expect. So usually when people are recommended or clients are recommended, because I have to admit 80% of my clientele is the same, they're a good fit. Very rarely they're not a good fit, because they are part of the same pool, let's say, the same pool of people thinking similarly or having the same mentality that you just pointed out. And the same in ONS, you're always going to have people that are not 100% fit, but because of the community, they are setting the trend. They are saying how you should act, what is allowed, what is not acceptable here. So you kind of create a framework already by being in that environment and having, it is not they will dictate the framework, but they need to adapt to the existing framework, if that makes sense.
No, I think that's a good point. It's a good point. So the client selection piece, another thing I'm just going to toss out there, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I think, is how we're working the client selection. So I think of it as, are we a value-based organization? So it kind of touched this earlier. It's like, are we just taking projects because it's, and kind of the idea you said about working for a corporate versus your own business, that you have more freedom to be selective in this regard. But is it taking projects just because of the revenue that can be generated, or is there some other kind of qualification process? And so I think one of those, an example would be, if you're a value-based organization, then you're also kind of you're prioritizing your values over your profit. So in some cases, theoretically, you could be making less money per se, but in favor of having a longer term approach, building upon values and not just chasing the dollar everywhere. I think being a value-based organization is a choice, and I suppose you could say there are trade-offs. For me, there are trade-offs that are they're much worth it. But I think, there are other ways you could be structured too, like to maximize profits on everything. But I don't feel like that's either of our vibes too much. So kind of instead being value-based organizations, I think, is the way we've both chosen to go.
True. And in my perspective, actually, you're earning more in long term, because I do that with a lot of clients. I'm decreasing the prices, or maybe I'm just spreading the payment on for a longer period. But if you do that with several clients, actually, what it results in having a higher base of clients that produce smaller amounts but consistent for a longer period of time. So overall, actually, you have a steady and reliable income that is coming, instead of going for the high paid ones. That's especially if you're a smaller organization, you'll not be able to cater to serve too many. So probably you'll have a couple of them, and in the moment one of them is leaving for several reasons, because the big clients are not, if they decide it's not working for me, they will just take their toy and leave, basically. You have a then you have a very big problem, because probably half of your income or a third of your income is disappearing overnight. And
Mm,
if you're a small
mm,
organization, what do you do in that situation? Because replacing a client of very high value, a very high bill, it takes time. You need to work that. So
mhm,
depending on the services that you're offering, the sales cycle and the decision making process can take between a minimum 3 months, if not six, sometimes 1 year, depending again what you're doing. But until
mhm.
you build that trust, you get the right connection, you negotiate, you make sure the budgets are available. There are so many things to take into account.
Yeah.
So it
Yep.
kind of depends a little bit how. So we discussed in the first part, and you made very good points in terms of how do you prepare yourself, like values, mental mindset,
Mhm,
business wise.
mhm,
But there are also very practical considerations that need to happen. So
mhm,
how long does it take to actually close a contract to get a new client on board? And even if you
mhm.
sign the client, usually there's an onboarding period. So it will not necessarily
Yep.
start tomorrow. So that means
Yep.
you're
Yep.
issuing the bill in 1 or 2 months or even 3 months, and it will be paid in 2 months. So how is that affecting your cash flow? Because
Yes.
this is why
Yep.
you have clients, right? So you do
Yeah.
need, like, now I'm gonna use your favorite word. You need a good process in place.
Yes. Yes.
And sales
Yes.
sales and getting new clients is it's ongoing. So it's not that
Mm,
I have enough clients now, I'm gonna stop. You always need to go and build relationship, not necessarily with the
mhm,
purpose I need to close that client now, but in the moment you need
mhm,
a new client, you have
mhm,
prospects, you have where to go and we discuss and we bring the discussions.
mhm.
So
Yeah, absolutely. So as you were chatting, it's funny, I was thinking, yeah, exactly. It's mindset and math. It's like
yes, it's
that's what we have.
amazing. Exactly. It's a numbers
Yeah, and
game.
then yeah, it's a numbers game, but it's also a numbers game often has the association like, you're just, cranking through, sending out proposals and, 1 out of 10 or 4 out of 10 will move forward. I also think of it math tied to the mindset piece about knowing your
Correct.
business and what are you doing, what are you offering, all the things that you mentioned, the sales cycle, all of that. um, I think one other piece I'm just going to throw in there and hopefully it doesn't muck things up a little bit, but we talked a little bit about being the decision that can be made to be a value-based organization, and then whether or not you use that lens to help identify or select clients that are also value based. That can be one kind of data point. But
Yeah.
there's also the idea of value based pricing. And so I won't go too far down that path because we already had a chat recently about client retention on
Mm-hmm.
episode. I'll
19?
tell you in a second. No, it's a bit.
No.
Just pick a number. 13? No, it wasn't 13. No, we'll pick. In the
We're
show
gonna
notes
we're
we'll put it.
gonna yeah.
But yeah. But we did like finance and client
Yes.
retention. But I think the idea of at least how I see it about building building long-term relationships in adding value over a period of time sets the table to then apply value-based pricing, right? So therefore it's as
Correct.
opposed to being a linear thing where it's like I bought this package of XYZ and here it is and that's it, or I did this one thing, I was going to say mowed your lawn, but there's not a lot of that happening here. So I got to find some new analogies. But like, I painted your house or I did this, built you a website or this one thing and you get the money for it and that's it. I think when you can position yourself or if you have a skill set or deliverables that are akin to providing kind of compounded value over time, then you can start to explore value-based pricing. However, because of the things that you were just talking about, sometimes it's also kind of prudent to have some smaller pieces, perhaps projects or things that are more kind of conventionally priced, a cost plus or uh, some other pricing formula that or based on hours, whatever you're comfortable with, as an opportunity to create some additional cash flow, but really as an opportunity to help screen those prospective new clients, giving them a small bite, just a
Yes.
compartmentalized one bite, one piece, I speak about it as like a conservative first step. So we have the opportunity to get to know each other, because I usually will say it's premature to talk about a long-term relationship at this point. Let's see if we can pass the first date test, kind of a thing. So I think that's another way. So you, and again, that goes back to the mindset, the math, and then the process of it, and thinking through, if this idea makes sense, what can some of those, bite-sized pieces be, and when and how to deploy them, as a way to help kind of filter through the prospective new clients that you have. Therefore, the ones that kind of come through the whole funnel or have a higher likelihood of being in alignment, you guys, probably will work better together, and etc. So it's just another example of how to, like, the tangible side of how to do client selection.
I actually love the fact that you brought this up, because while you were chatting, I realized there are two types of discussions when you are prospecting, basically, or you have that first date, how you said it. So there are people that you don't even discuss the price at the beginning. So everything is like, this is what I need. How do you approach it? You actually discuss about values, about the concept, about their needs, approach on. It's really more quality focused type of discussion. And usually when I have that, I would say 95%. They are my clients, so we're going to work together. And then you have those clients that we're going to ask, or clients, prospect, or discussions from the beginning, the amount. Usually those are not my clients. If the discussion starts with the amount, how much would that cost? There are some exceptions, but in the majority of the cases, those are not my clients. It's very simple, because they are not looking for quality or value. They are just looking for a cheap solution. And of course, you need to ask about the price. And I do, depending on how the conversation goes, towards the end, or when they ask, or me also to qualify them, because it needs to be qualified from both sides. I'm giving them a range. So depending on what you want, can be between X and Z. And you see where they are, you see their reaction, you see how, yes, this is above my budget, or this could fit my budget, or I'm somewhere in between, or so there's a starting point. And then you know
price
how
anchoring.
to continue.
Price anchoring is great. Yeah, it's helpful. It's necessary.
Yeah, you have to do it. And of course, you do. I think this comes with experience, because both of us, we are working for over 20 something years. So it became an instinct, when to bring it up, depending on the conversation, the relationship you have with that person, how to, like, how everything goes, the questions they are asking. But it becomes very organic, but it's something that you do need to bring, because otherwise it will be a waste of both sides time, and will be very counterproductive, actually.
Yeah, I agree with that. And and I was trying to think of a really clever segue, and I didn't come up with one. So here we go. Here's the next thing quickly. And I think the last thing I have to share in this topic, I think, is also, again, goes back, it's rooted in the mindset piece and the kind of clarity about the objectives, right? So in terms of client selection, there's kind of some presumptions tied to that client selection equals revenue producing, right? But I think if we also apply creativity, and so we've also done an episode on creativity as a business strategy, I think this is a great opportunity to utilize creativity. What I mean is, there are other ways to generate revenue for a business than just through client services kind of thing, or with traditional customers. So I think looking at, kind of putting on the creativity hat and thinking about, am I typically a B2B? Can I create a B2C offering, or vice versa? Or can I start to create some opportunities with partnerships? We also have talked about hosting events. Maybe you could do that, or co-hosting an event, or some other ways, some sponsorship opportunities. So I think I think that there's often, it's, just this idea that to build our business, we need to make money. To make our money, we have to go get clients. And although that can be true, there are lots of other ways to do it as well. So I think it can be useful to think of it as really, it's not necessarily lead generation. I think of it as opportunity creation.
I like that. I say don't think linearly. So don't think just in one way, and broaden, change the perspective. Go,
Yeah.
just climb on a chair and look from above, or go on the floor and look from beneath. Because as you said, opportunities are everywhere, but you do need a flexible way of thinking and approaching business. And then you never know what will happen. And you said you mentioned the events, and we did discuss quite a large on this topic. It doesn't necessarily need to bring you money on the spot, but it can bring you visibility and connections, opportunities in getting in touch with other organizations that may be your client. So it's or maybe you are launching a new service. As you said, you are pivoting from B2B to B2C, or B2B to C, or it's actually, we can do a lot of things as long as you're not stuck in just one single-minded way of doing business.
That's right. That's right. So I think that's client selection in a nutshell. I mean, we talked about being value-based. We talked about scarcity and abundance. We talked about having a sustainable business. So yeah, the mindset and the math and process. It's like,
exactly.
Yeah, simple as that.
And when you said the math is the, actually there's a saying in sales, every single note gets you closer to a yes. And it is a number game, but it's not luck. It's actually consistency. So when I think that's very important for us to outline when we talk about a numbers game, it's about consistency and about persistency, because you do need that to succeed in business.
So I now know my closing argument for today is yeah, perfect. So one of the things when I've done like lots of speaking engagements previously and workshops and whatnot, one of the things I used to talk about is I would teach people how to get lucky in business, right?
I like that.
Yeah, so it's like I can teach you how to get lucky in business. And so the way to do that is this fabulous equation, right? So, and it's one of my favorite quotes, but it's a quote or an equation. So luck is what happens when opportunity meets preparation.
That's beautiful.
Oh, there we go.
I think that's the best way to close this episode. So
yes,
thank you everyone for listening. And I think we still have one more episode this year, or not. We'll see. But
I don't know.
I'm lost.
That's a wrap
I'm
on
lost.
21. Yes.
That's a wrap. But thank you everyone for staying until now and listening to us. And see you next time.
Cheers.